Why is it that humans are able to comprehend the universe? How have we managed to do this? This is a question that has a long history of speculation. But seen from an evolutionary perspective, the answer is fairly straightforward. Humans can comprehend the universe because our brains have been encoded with the inherent rationality of the universe through the very process of evolution. Let's look at this idea in some detail. Firstly, the ability of humans to actually comprehend the universe is rather obvious. We have a good understanding of how the forces of the universe operate. An understanding that is continuing to increase, century after century. But for the purposes of this discussion, we need to be clear about what we mean by comprehension. A simple definition is that we can say we understand something, that is, comprehend it, if first of all, we can describe its behavior. Secondly, we can predict its behavior. And thirdly, and most importantly, we can manipulate its behavior. As it is only by being able to manipulate something that we can say we truly understand it. These three abilities then, describing, predicting, and manipulating, constitute a common sense notion of understanding, a notion of the ability to comprehend something. For example, we can say we understand the electromagnetic force because we can describe its behavior, predict its behavior, and manipulate its behavior. Whereas, we don't understand the force of gravity because, while we can describe and predict its behavior, we can't as yet manipulate it. So we'll use this simple, common sense notion of comprehension in this current context of how it is that we can understand the natural world. And despite not having a full understanding of gravity, we nevertheless do have a good understanding of the universe in general, to the point where we have been able to use our mathematical physics to manipulate it in order to create our amazing modern world. So how then have we acquired this ability to comprehend the universe? Well, from the very beginning of life on this planet, the rational forces of the universe have been acting on life. The universe is in effect the meta-environment of all life. It has created the selective pressures that have acted on all species from the very beginning to the present time. And this selective environment is simply the rationality of the universe itself, an inherent rationality that manifests as the fundamental condition of cause and effect. One rational cause results in a rational effect in a never-ending cascade of processes, both across space and through time. And this fundamental, rational condition of the universe shaped the very character of early life, and continued to shape its form over hundreds of millions of years. At both the molecular and macro levels, all of life had to operate in a rational manner in order to survive and thrive. And in particular, it is the evolving brain of living things that is shaped by the ever-present meta-environment of the rational universe. Starting with prokaryotes, then eukaryotes, sponges, comb jellies, and flatworms, to fishes and amphibians, and finally, mammals and primates. All of the fundamental components of the brains of living things were gradually shaped by the selective pressures of a rational universe over the course of billions of years. And so we end up with the evolved rational brain of primates. And one evolved primate, in particular, that of Homo sapiens. The rationality of the brain of these unique primates would have had the following key aspects: spatial recognition, short and long-term memory, logical induction and deduction, and importantly, pattern recognition. All of which allowed them to gradually gain a basic understanding of the localized rational universe within which they inhabited. And it was these unique primates who were able to take an extraordinary step. They were able to manifest these evolved rational neurochemical processes of their brains into the material world as objects and sounds that could be passed from one generation to the next. They therefore gave birth to human culture. This was the most remarkable event in the history of all life on this planet. For the first time, the rational neurochemical processes of a species which would normally have just perished when a species member died, now manifested from the brain as objects, sounds, and ideas that could be passed to the next generation. This was possible because of the unique vocal system and hand morphology of humans, which allowed them to manipulate the material world and organize themselves in new rational ways. The physiology of the human hand allowed for the creation of the tangible rational components of culture, and the physiology of the vocal tract allowed for a complex system of sounds that could stimulate the common rationality of individuals and organize human groups. For example,
You two go to the waterhole. From along the ridge. And both of you go to the waterhole. From around the small hill. So we can circle around the animals.
We are going to dig for tubers at the clearing. You two take the baskets to the tree at the South River. The tree will be fruiting this time of year.
And so on. By triggering the common space-time maps held in the brains of all group members, the complex sounds of human language could organize the behavior of a group of individuals in a rational manner. Together then, the unique vocal system and hand morphology of humans allowed humans to manifest the neurochemical processes of their encoded brains as a complex rational culture, which left its imprint on the material world in ever-increasing forms, starting with villages and then towns, to ancient civilizations, and finally modern cities. This continuing manifestation of their neurochemical processes over the course of thousands of years resulted in an ever-expanding rational human culture. But it was with the development of mathematics that the inherent rationality of the universe manifested in its purest form. Mathematics developed in a series of major stages. First, there was the brilliant insight that you could symbolically represent the number of objects you could see, which gave birth to counting and arithmetic. Then there was the symbolic representation of the relationship between objects, both in terms of distance and orientation. That is to say, the development of geometry. These two manifestations of rationality gave birth to civilization and the ancient world by making it possible to record and calculate the number and flow of goods within any large-scale society, and by allowing for the construction of larger and more complicated rational structures that formed the basis of the architecture of all ancient civilizations. And all the civilizations of the past didn't have another significant manifestation of rationality until the next major developments in mathematics. This was firstly the development of algebra, which generalized the operations of arithmetic, and then the symbolic representation of space by the Cartesian coordinate system, which was in effect the first meta-symbolic map of the rational universe. These two new manifestations of rationality then allowed for the symbolic representation of the motion of objects in the universe. That is to say, the development of calculus. And it was these three new developments in mathematics that then gave birth to the modern world as we know it, as they allowed for an understanding of how all things move through both space and time with great precision. Suddenly, the motion of all the celestial objects and the motion of objects on Earth became clear to us, and we could symbolically represent the underlying forces that govern their behavior. And on a practical level, these new developments in mathematics and physics, in turn, made possible precision engineering, which forms the basis of all modern technology. However, it's worth pausing here for a moment to talk about how we actually think about mathematics, and the general question of what mathematics actually is. Mathematics is usually thought of as a symbolic language, but a more accurate description is that of a map. It's in effect a map of the rationality of the human brain, which in turn reflects the inherent rationality of the universe. And the human maps of mathematics can be different, as they have been in the past, as each population created its own specific symbols. But over time, as we compared the maps between populations, and exchanged the symbols, in order to pick the symbols that worked best, in terms of their simplicity and functionality, we eventually arrived at the map we use today, with its Indo-Arabic notation. And it's interesting to speculate about what other rational structures might lie deep within our brains, waiting for us to find the right map to discover them. Historians of mathematics have noted that the ancient Greek mathematician Archimedes was so close to discovering calculus, but he didn't take the final step. But he probably wouldn't have, and couldn't have discovered calculus, using the symbolic notation of ancient Greek math, which didn't facilitate the manifestation of rationality, to the extent that the Indo-Arabic numeric system does. So perhaps, in order for us to take the next big step in the manifestation of rationality as new mathematics, it might be necessary to develop a better notational system, which would allow us to represent the deeper levels of the rationality of our brains in a more simple and convenient form. Perhaps we could create a new branch of mathematics, which is explicitly concerned with experimenting with new notational systems, in the hope of discovering one that allows for an even deeper level of our rationality to emerge, in the form of a more powerful and insightful symbolic system. And it's also worth noting that the whole debate regarding the role of aesthetics in mathematical physics is relevant here. Historically, there's been a long discussion and debate concerning the role of beauty in mathematical physics. Specifically, the question has been, should we allow mathematical beauty to guide our study of the physical world? Well, if a mathematical equation is seen as beautiful, it's because it stimulates the fundamental rational neurochemical processes of the human brain. To say that something is beautiful is simply to say that it makes us feel good cognitively. In which case, it is definitely worth using beauty as a guide, as it is, at the very least, pointing the way to the inherent rationality of our brain, and hence the universe, because it provides an economical mapping of the rational neurochemical processes of the brain, a pathway of least resistance, through which the neurochemical processes of rationality flow. Beautiful mathematics, then, is in a figurative sense an echo of the rational universe. And what we are actually doing in the process of discovery in mathematical physics is learning to map our brain better, with greater efficacy and fidelity. But returning to the history of the manifestation of rationality as mathematics. So what we saw with the development of calculus, and all the new mathematics that followed, is our ever-increasing ability to manipulate the material world, which in turn showed an increasing cognitive ability to understand the universe. From Newtonian mechanics, to thermodynamics, to electromagnetism, to general relativity, and finally quantum mechanics. And these newly found mathematical and physical insights, and the manipulative power they provided, gave manifest rationality a new authority in human populations, and resulted in not only the creation of new technology, but also more rational human cultures in general, with new logical procedures and practices, and new rational ideas. And so we see the increasing manifestation of rationality by the human species, as we continue to increase our understanding of the forces of the universe, through the collective enterprise of stimulating and then manifesting the common encoded rationality of our brains, all of which created the time we live in now, an age of heightened, manifest rationality. This then is the major characteristic of the human species. This ability to collectively stimulate and manifest the rational neurochemical processes of our brains, as all the rational components of culture. Our technology, language, ideas, and also our logical practices and procedures, which organize us in a rational manner. And it's all made possible from brains that have evolved and been shaped by the rational universe over the course of billions of years, due to the fundamental conditions of cause and effect. And from a cosmic perspective, the human species can be seen to be merely a medium through which the inherent rationality of the universe manifests itself. By our practices of collectively stimulating and manifesting the encoded rationality of our brains over the course of centuries, we facilitate the emergence of rational objects, procedures, and ideas. And therefore, we're in effect a channel through which the rational universe flows, and has continued to flow for thousands of years. And so, the reason that we can comprehend the universe is because the rationality of the universe has been encoded into our brains through evolution and emerges from us. In this sense, then, we really are simply a medium through which the rationality of the universe manifests. And if the human species survives, the inherent rationality of our indifferent universe will continue to manifest in ever-increasing forms